Welcome to Whippoorwill Holler. I'm Miss Lori and this is Mr. Brown. We live in the hills of Arkansas. We love the Lord. Keepers of the old way, but accept some of the new. We love to cook and we love to eat. We love to garden. It's in our blood. It's how we stay sustainable and fill our pantry. We do a lot of canning and preserving. We live a sustainable life. We love our family. We work hard. And every once in a while, we like to dance. So y'all join us. We are going to be spending some time on the river, and I want to get this video out to y'all. I want to be with y'all before we left out. And this is going to be a recipe for cornbread for two. A little skillet of cornbread just for two. And we're also going to be making, this is not your regular potluck squash dressing. This has got a little spice to it, a little Tex Mex, and I guarantee you, any potluck you take it to, they're going to love it and they're going to want the recipe. So hang around because you're going to love both of these recipes. Okay, we're going to start out with our little cornbread, our little bitty cornbread, just enough for two people. And I've got a tablespoon of melted butter in the bottom of my little mixing dish. I put a fourth a cup plus my egg. I'm putting a fourth a cup plus a tablespoon of cornmeal, and I think it's a fourth a cup of flour, just regular flour. I've also got a fourth a teaspoon of baking powder and a fourth a teaspoon of salt. Now, if y'all want to, you can. If you're wanting to use your Aunt Jemima cornmeal mix instead of just regular cornmeal and flour, you can put in a half a cup of your cornmeal mix, which I use a lot too. And you can put your little sugar in here too. This is going to fit anywhere from a 6-inch to a 6.5-inch iron skillet. If you don't have any iron skillets that little, just find you some kind of baking dish that's about that size. 6-inch to 6.5-inch. And I'll have all the ingredients down in my information box so y'all can copy it down. Now I got my little skillet in the oven, and I had a tablespoon of butter in it. I'm going to use my little tovolo, and I'm going to scrape it out. My skillet's hot. Now, if you don't want to use butter in the bottom of your baking dish or whatever you're using, your cast iron, you can put a little bit of grease or whatever, bacon grease, just whatever you want to use. But remember that this is going to be going into your squash dressing. So if you put bacon grease, you're going to have a little bit of bacon taste, which will probably be pretty good. Just get it all scraped in there. And my oven is set for 400, and it shouldn't take any more than 15, maybe 20 minutes. It just depends on your oven. I'm going to say 15 to 17 minutes in my oven. So let's get it in there and get it done. You can also use your countertop oven for this little bitty cornbread. It's just right for two people. And I'm going to be using my countertop Emerald Lagasse oven today. And here is our cornbread. It's all done. It's nice and brown around the edges. It took about 17 minutes to get it done. Slather some butter on there. It's going to be good. I want to show y'all something. I got this from my friend Laura, and I had boiled up some chicken, so I had some broth, and I remembered that I had this. And this is to put soups and broths in to freeze. And you can see each one of these little holes is a cup. So you can do half a cup or a cup. That way you know the amount that's in each one. And this is the lid. It's called Super Cubes. And you just put the lid on it and you put it in your freezer, and it freezes them really good. And if you just need like a cup of broth or soup, you know which in, you know, the measurement of them. You can just kind of, after they're frozen, you can just kind of pop them out of there. It's or you, once they're frozen, you can pop them all out and put them in a bag or something. And she also sent me a different size too. But these come in really handy. So I'm just going to put the lid on. I'm going to put this in the freezer. And I'll have me some frozen broth for whenever I need it. And I know exactly how much is in each little container there. So if I need 1 cup or 2 cups or 3 cups, I know how many it's going to take. Pretty handy. Thank you, Laura. Okay, let's make our squash dressing. Now I cut up and I've got 4 cups of squash. Here I've got 1 cup of cornbread. And you don't want to break it up really fine. You want it kind of in 1-inch hunks or so, because you're going to be folding this into your dressing. You don't want it crumpled up real fine. You just want it, if it's real fine, it's just not going to come out right. So you want about just like that, just crumpled up about that big. It'll work good. And of course, I used part of my little pan of cornbread. So I've got 4 cups of squash here. I've got zucchini and yellow, and I put 2 tablespoons of water. I'm going to put a plate on it, and I'm just going to stick it in my microwave for about 8 to 10 minutes till it softens up. Then we're just going to drain it. Now, I got most of the seeds out of my squash and zucchini, but it looked like I didn't get all of it out. So there is a little bit of seeds left in there, but that's okay. I try to get as much of the seeds out as I can. So I'm going to drain and get most of that liquid out. I'm going to kind of mush down my squash. It's real tender from cooking it in the microwave. Just kind of press it down a little bit and get as much of that liquid out as you can. That way you won't have so much liquid in your dressing. If you like Tex Mex, you're going to love this recipe. And I'm going to put a couple of tablespoons of butter in my skillet. And I've got about a half of a red onion chopped up. And I've got a small onion chopped up. And we're just going to saute that first. I want y'all, I've showed y'all this spoon years ago, a couple years ago when I first started but this one's my mother-in-law's spoon. And this spoon is probably, I know it's over 50 years old. No telling how old it is. But I've still got this spoon, and I hope maybe one of my grandkids has this spoon. But anyways, it was my mother-in-law's, and I use it every once in a while. So just get your butter melted. And if you don't have red pepper, you can use green pepper. I prefer red or orange or yellow bell peppers, but you just use what you've got. I didn't cut up my onions very good, I guess. Some of it didn't get cut up very good. But we're just going to saute these so they're just starting to get soft. Just starting to get just a little bit wilted there. Not too much. Before we start adding some other ingredients to it. Just a few minutes. Okay, that's been cooking just a couple of minutes, and they're already starting to soften a little bit. I'm going to add my cup of frozen corn, and this was just corn that I had put up last year. I put it in, you know, in cupfuls. That way, if I need it for a recipe, that's part of the cob still in there. I know exactly how much is in that package. And you store-bought, and if you don't have frozen corn or fresh, you can use canned corn, but it just, to me, it's better with fresh or frozen corn. So we're just going to saute that for a couple minutes, and then we're going to put in our squash. And we're going to saute that. Just for a few minutes. To mix it up good. And I kind of think that I could have put in probably another small yellow squash in here. I just used what I had at the time. And it was around 4 cups of cubed squash. I think yellow squash has a little more flavor to it than zucchini does, though. Danny don't care for yellow squash sauteed or anything, but he does like stuff like this. You could even add chicken to this if you wanted to, and just make a whole meal out of it. I'm going to add about a teaspoon of cumin, and that just gives it that little bit of Tex Mex taste. Now, if you're somebody that doesn't like cumin, you can use a little bit of chili powder. I don't think I would put a whole teaspoon. You might, just depends on how spicy you like it. But cumin is my choice. I think it gives it a good taste. So we're just going to stir that around and kind of cook that just a little bit, just a minute or two. I'm going to put just a little bit more salt and pepper. A little bit more seasoning to it. Stir that up. I could eat it just like this. Squash, succotash. Be good. I'm going to get me a little bit of flour. And what we're going to be making is a sauce. And I did put in a teaspoon of minced garlic too. That is our tablespoon of flour. And we're going to cook that for about 2 minutes to make sure that flour gets cooked. Then we're going to add a cup of milk. And this will start thickening up pretty quick. And this is going to make your kind of like a sauce. I've got 4 ounces of green chilies. And that's what gives it that good Tex-Mex flavor too. We're just going to stir that in. You can see it starting to thicken up pretty good. I'm going to put just a little bit more pepper in there. I couldn't remember if I told y'all that we were putting a teaspoon of garlic in there, but we did. We put a teaspoon of garlic in, minced garlic. Or you can put a half a teaspoon of garlic powder. So I'm going to turn my burner off. I'm going to kind of break up some of that squash. So it's thick enough, so I'm going to turn my burner off. And I'm going to get my cornbread. And we're just going to throw this in here. Now, don't go in there and just start stirring it. Kind of fold that cornbread in that. Because if you just stir it really hard and mess around with it too much, you're going to break up that cornbread. And you just really don't want it broke up. Now, if you're not wanting to use leftover cornbread or cornbread that you made just for this dish, you can use store-bought stuffing, the dry stuffing that's in the bag. That works in this recipe too. So just kind of lightly fold them in. Don't mess with it too much. And then we're going to put about a half a cup of Monterey Jack cheese. Or if you have cheddar cheese, pepper jack. And just kind of stir that in a little. Fold it in. Now I've got an 8 by 8. Really and truly, I think this is a 7.9 by 7.9, but take an 8 by 8 baking dish and just pour it all in there. Spray your dish. Pour all your ingredients in there. And my little countertop oven, my Emerald Lagasse oven, is I'm going to cook this at 375, probably for about 20 minutes. I'll check it at 15 minutes, and then I'll put the rest of this cheese on top of it and cook it for another 5 minutes. And it should be good and done. So here it is, after 20 minutes. And I think I could have put more cheese on top. What do you think? But take this to your next potluck and say, here is a new recipe for our summer squash dressing. People are going to love it. I guarantee you. It's got that Tex Mex taste, but it still has that squash dressing taste too. Okay, we want to get caught up on our sauerkraut that we just done. I don't know, what was it, a week ago? And this is what it looks like at this point. Excuse me. There's no mold, no scum, no nothing. There might be just a little bit of foam around the edge, but I done took my leaves and my weights off. It's already fermented. It's really wilted. But I'm wanting to add some more cabbage to it. I went out to the garden and I had just another head of cabbage that I'm wanting to add to it. So I got it shredded up. And this is how we're going to do this. We're just going to add the rest of this cabbage. I know some of y'all were asking me, now how do you go about adding more cabbage to your kraut? And this is how I do it. Because I'll probably end up with another small head or two that I'll even add to this. So I'll just get it all in there. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to stir all this new cabbage into the kraut that's already fermenting. I need to get me a different spoon though and mix it all up together. Okay, here it is after I've mixed it all up, and you can see some of the older kraut and some of the new kraut. And you can see that that brine's just barely over that kraut. So I'm going to take about a cup of that brine that I made last time because I just stuck it in the refrigerator, the water and salt. It's 1 cup of water to a tablespoon of salt. And I'm just going to add another cup of that brine to this. And I'm going to add my leaves back. Now, I didn't think about it, but I could have kept some of the new leaves off this other head of cabbage. It was getting ate up by bugs pretty bad. So anyways, we're just going to cover it back up with the leaves, the cabbage leaves that was in there. Just kind of tuck it around the edges, just like that. Push that brine over it. And you can tell that the crock is getting fuller as we go. Put my weights back on it. And I can tell you that kraut is really fermenting good because it's already got a sour smell to it. So I don't know that it's going to take 6 weeks for all this to ferment to where I like it. So there we go. We got more cabbage in there going to ferment. And that's just how easy that is. Just make sure that your brine always stays over your kraut. Well, I hope y'all like this video. We're going to go to the river and enjoy some time on the river. So God bless everybody. We'll see y'all in a couple of days.